All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Youngstown's Talk Channel. It's Monday morning. Kellen's not here today, and guest hosting here, we have Paul in studio. Paul, thank you for coming down. I appreciate it, brother.
Appreciate it, yeah.
So here's the Kellen rule. You have to play it, even though Kellen's not here. You still have to do all the things.
We'll have the same hair.
So flattery is part of the obligation.
Sure.
Referring to me as like talk show king or something. They'll just lavish me with praise.
Just lavish you with praise?
Yeah.
Yes.
Argumentation is probably important. So if you want to disagree with me just for the sake of doing it, we'll kind of know it's in an asterisk that, you know, you're only doing it because you have to kind of thing.
Sure.
So how you doing this morning?
I'm good, El Conquistador. Doing great.
See,
right off the bat.
Templated. I love it. I love it.
Good lead. Good lead. Yeah.
If you guys want to call the program today, 330-595-1600. We're going to talk about our regular stuff, so I want to get your feelings on some of the stuff.
Sure.
First off, the Olympics ended on Sunday. Did you watch anything?
So I watched most of the highlights, and I watched the hockey games. So
Okay.
I didn't find myself sitting in front of the TV, as I've done in the past. I just kind of catch it up at the end of the night. How about you?
I watched a couple curling matches. That's really the only thing that I fancied here this last time around. And it's so odd with how serious someone can take a thing that is like, you know, the old guys at bocce, how they get
Well, I was just going to
serious.
say that. Have you seen bocce here in Youngstown?
Yeah. Like it's a
throw
serious
something at
prospect.
Target, we got problems. Yeah.
But anyway, it was interesting. I don't understand the game at all.
Yeah, it'd be great to learn.
I looked into the rules a couple times. I'm like, yeah, you know what? This information is just burn. I'm
That's
never
right.
going to use this again.
That's right.
Can you
It's
pull
the
up the
only
mic
time-
a little bit, like about a fist away from that so everybody can
Sure.
hear you?
And this is the only time you're going to see it, too. So every 4 years, you can see curling.
Yeah,
and then,
I can
learn
pretend to
about
know what I'm doing. Like, there's a couple strategies that, you know, I saw, like blocking and, you know, hitting it away from it. But there's some stuff that I really wasn't following. So
it. The hog line, you learned what the hog line is. And
I
when you're
don't.
allowed to touch the rock. Is it the rock
Okay,
that,
yeah,
that
the rock.
they roll down? And when you have to take your finger off of it and can't move. It's just crazy.
Yeah. And there were some...
And they're serious people.
yeah, and-
you can be a pro at it. You can become internationally famous. for
Yes.
rolling a
Us
rock
nerdy
down ice.
people, we wear it like a badge.
We did that as kids.
Yeah.
Just throw rocks on the ice.
100%.
Who knew that was a career path?
I'm telling you, man.
know.
Lots of money to be made there, I'm
Amen.
sure.
Amen.
Now, the Olympics used to be a very national pride type of thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, historically, we sent our best warriors to compete against other people's warriors, and those who won were the strongest nations, and it was a badge.
Yep.
And then we come to now where nobody really gets excited about, you know, the Olympics.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's some people.
Well, if
right?
I'm honest with you, I didn't even know it was starting.
Okay.
And I show up at my son's basketball game. My mom sits there and watches it. She goes, "Did you watch the opening of the Olympics?" I'm like, no. Did it start? You know, and so once you get into it, it's great because you can kind of catch some storylines, you know, like the hockey game or, you know, Lindsey Vonn and how she tried to come back. And you can really enjoy some of that stuff. But I don't recall, at least this time around, it being such a massive marketing, prideful, national moment to get ready for this. And I'm not sure why.
So, like, in America, it's weird because we're so politicized that even in the Olympics, we can't rally behind the flag. And, you know, we
That's
try to
probably true.
cast it as an embarrassment type of thing.
I didn't know you were into politics, Joe.
I think we might just skirt into
We're gonna
those
find
weird
our way.
territory just for today, just because you're here.
It's all right. Two bald libertarians. You think we'll get there?
Yes,
Yeah, for sure.
yes. But anyway, it's so polarized that, you know, that becomes a contentious thing, whether or not you can celebrate your nation doing well in freaking Olympics when
Oh, for
should be so free from politics, it's not even
yes.
funny.
Yes,
but
for
we couldn't
sure.
even do that. Like the Huffington Post. Did you see this exchange between that seafood company and Huffington Post?
Yes.
Oh, that was good, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
Huffington Post basically showed a picture and said, hey, you know, this Olympics, national, being proud of your nation, you're not the only one if you're not proud of your nation. And this seafood company in Maryland, I think, said, F you, HuffPost, which was, I was like, yeah, I can get behind that sentiment.
Have they been canceled yet?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
No,
Okay.
no, I think they probably would go to instant success. They will have more
Probably.
customers than they've ever had. And it's weird because in business, we used to stray away from any politically charged anything with the fear that you're going to alienate half of your would-be customers.
Yeah, so that's always been like really illogical in business too. So you would see, so I know you're an entrepreneur, you've done a whole bunch of stuff. You know, at the beginning of my journey in this, you'd always kind of look at this and go, if I could only get 10% of the market, right? Which is an irrational way to look at starting a business. And then you kind of morph to, man, if I get 90% of this, like I'm going to kill it, which is a even more irrational way to start a business. And so the reality of it is you're always chasing a percentage. And what the political divide has done for us right now is I can tick off half the company or country, the other half will buy from me. So I instantly pick up market share just based on, emotional response, just regurgitation of the split.
Yeah.
So that seafood company probably did great.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like the risk is worth the reward now because
sure.
people are so eager to jump behind people in their tribe rather than, just a vanilla customer that has no political leanings.
Yeah, to some extent, you got to wonder if that makes the environment actually more organic and real. All right, if I'm willing to kind of tell you what I think and I don't have to suffer some huge kind of false or, overlaid, penalty for saying something that's really on my mind, and there are others around me that are willing to support it. Now, obviously, there's probably limits to what you ought to be saying, but it's probably a more natural environment now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's such a primitive thing, and you're right. It is organic. I mean, we got a rebel spirit here, right? And so when anytime something becomes contentious, like if you heard that a company was doing something that was off grid that aligned with your beliefs, would you not, like, if you even weren't in the mood for a chicken sandwich, something in you like, I'm gonna go get an effing chicken sandwich because that dude says he's not buying.
That's correct. 100% I would. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just natural. It's just human nature, right? You're gonna speak however you think you need to speak and kind of push back however you need to push back. But it's just interesting. All right. So the fakeness of it or the pompousness of it is the response. It's not the initial comment or position that somebody is taking. So if they don't want that chicken sandwich and they've got a reason for it, or the seafood company is talking to me about pride and national, Huffington Post is a different scenario. It's the response to that really is kind of the inorganic, probably led social phenomenon right now. So the upfront, I love the upfront part of the honesty. The back side of it is really where the danger lies.
It's messy.
Yeah,
it
for sure.
Really is messy.
Yep.
Well, those who don't know, Paul is a libertarian, probably more of a zealot in libertarian beliefs than I am. I've given up my libertarian card a couple times this year.
Yeah.
But overall
I've
principle,
noticed.
you and I are on the same playbook.
I believe so. Yep.
And we as a nation are just so weird about trusting authority. Like, you and I probably buy into the founders' belief that nobody should be trusted, everybody should be questioned, constant scrutiny, constant cynicism, and never give something to someone permanently because they're just going to squander it, right? Is that fair?
And grow it. Give it to them, they're just going to add more.
Right.
Yeah, for
now,
sure.
do you think that we are too far gone from libertarian principles ever to be something that could either be fashionable or...
No, but I do think that we are well beyond the concept of a true third party seeing any success at a national level. Now, all my libertarian friends are really not going to like that comment. And to your point, my background includes a run through the Libertarian Party, state of Ohio. And so the machine itself is not built for and does not allow for third parties to do much. So, for example, Libertarian Party got access in New York a couple cycles ago, and since they've gotten national or access to the ballot, the powers that be redid the laws in New York and tripled the amount of signatures that the Libertarian Party needs to get to stay on the ballot. So you work for 40 years, get on it, and they just change the rules and make it harder. So the machine's not built for that. And, so the machine's built to provide personal benefit to the people that are running the machine, right? And our government is set up to retain that power. However, if you're a LGBTQIA and you've married somebody, that's a libertarian philosophy. You can do that today because libertarians fought. They fought in the machine. You just didn't see them, right? If you can smoke marijuana today, I guess unless you're in Ohio, it's a libertarian philosophy, right? And so most of the things that you see that allow people to own themselves and make decisions about themselves and what they do behind their front door are here because of libertarianism, 100%. But I think if you see an LP moniker, that's going to be a long way off.
Yeah. So what, like the Mondanis and the Bernie Sanders, they took the Democrat Party and they created a new flavor of the socialist side of Democrat and then traditional.
Yep.
And Trump broke the Republican Party by taking I don't even know what it's called. You call it MAGA, call it whatever you want, but it's definitely not Republican conservative values.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So does the libertarian say we need to morph inside what's already established and make a new flavor versus having another entity that has to compete against those conglomerates?
Oh, yeah. So you see it in Massey, you see it in Paul, 100%. We saw it in the Tea Party. That's when I got involved in politics, was Tea Party time, right? So I remember a guy named Jim Trafficant showing up at a Tea Party, but you have to do it. I think if you want to be successful, you have to have a bend or a bias towards progress. So it's just like running a business. I mean, these things just kind of all interrelate. I have to bend towards progress. I have to take 1,000 little steps and then be able to look back a year from now and go, holy cow, like look how far I went. Whether it's politics, whether it's governance rules, whether it's your ability to communicate and voice what you think should be done, or your business, you just need to be on a bend towards progress. So if I can go in and say run for office someday, and start to have an argument about property taxes, right? And I can bend towards less property taxes. I may not get zero, right? But I'm bending towards progress that allows me to retain, what's mine and provide less to the people whose job it is to prevent me from doing what it is that I want to do.
Through attrition, slowly making it in a... But with how the political winds change, you don't really have a long time horizon to be able to make those pressures go in one direction without knowing it's going to recede the minute that person is no longer there, or that, mentality fades a little bit.
Yeah, so I agree to some extent. I disagree to some extent. So in the challenge of your early commentary, I'm going to throw it back at you, Sir King of Talk Radio. Trump disproved that. Tea Party disproved that. Bernie continues to disprove it. He literally has very little to say for his time in Congress, but he is a very loud voice that provides the speakership to a group of conglomerates that are trying to get somewhere. And the nation's never going to let him get everywhere he wants to go, but he's willing to take little cuts. Mondami's different. Out of nowhere, has all the wrong markers and has all the press against him. And whether you like Mondami or not, and I have zero opinion on that, he won resoundingly, very quickly, right? And so now we have to see if he's successful. And as a country, we ought to be saying, let's cheer him on so that he can be successful in a way that supports what we want to do, and then fight some of the things that we don't. But I don't even think we're doing that.
Let me reverse you on this one.
Yeah.
Because what you suggested is, like, when you have a principle and you build towards success in that philosophy.
Sure.
Those two people that you named are doing the opposite, where they're breaking things in such a way that they're able to get progress in the void of what was broken. So, like in Trump's case, I think the most attractive thing with him is that machines that churn out like an end and almost couldn't be challenged, those things are crumbling. And because they're crumbling, the problems that they create almost necessitate making a fix in there. And he's getting all his successes within the fix. Same thing with Mondani. Isn't as deep into it yet,
sure.
But he's going to break New York systems, right? He's going to break all of the budgets. He's going to prove out why this stuff doesn't work in the real world. And in that brokenness, you're going to have someone that can swoop in there. And now, since the system that when it was in its entirety couldn't be fixed because it was just too monstrous, now that it's broken, somebody can swing in there and put Band-Aids on it.
Yeah, so what they end up proving, it's a good point. So what they end up proving is there's a lot of people that are cheering for Mondani to fail, right? Because they want to prove that his more progressive socialists, to put it under a political umbrella, are not going to be successful. He's literally going to prove what it is that we've been worried about and warning about all along. Trump is exactly the same thing. He's just on the other end of this linear expression, right? So Trump broke a lot of stuff, a ton of stuff. He also proved that the president has way more power than people ever assumed that he did, right? And so, like a couple days ago, the Supreme Court, shot down his tariff policy. There's like 5 more laws he can go through to maintain those. He's increasing the tariffs after the Supreme Court said no, or at least stating is. We have very little view into all the mechanics that let this stuff work. And so what we have found out with Trump is just the opposite. We can have a despot or a very authoritarian leader who has a tremendous amount of power. And he's going to break it. But when he's done, to your point, a Democrat may come in and we'll wash it all away, or we're going to redo the balance of Congress, and they're going to wash it all away, with new laws. So it does become a learning, evolving, kind of process. But I guess if I would put it under an allegory, this is what I'd say. So you and I want to go buy a car. I'm selling my car to you, Joe, and it's 10 grand, right? And so in our negotiation, I doubt that you're going to come to me and go, I'll pay you the 10 grand that you're asking, right? Generally, you're going to start to negotiate. Well, if you want to pay 6 grand for a car, then the car I've got, you say it's worth 6 grand, and I'm saying 10 grand. What's your first pitch to me? It's probably meet in the middle. Okay?
Right.
We just gave up half your ground.
That's easy.
You just gave up half your ground. You're not getting 6 anymore or anywhere near it. You gave up
I'm
half
starting
your
at
ground.
2 then.
You're going at 2?
2,000.
So that's where we ought to start, right?
Right.
So if you ever watch like Pawn Stars or something like that, like people in their negotiation skills, the people we elect, the people that we hire, they're just normal people that we kind of put in these positions of power, negotiate to the middle, which means if you have a libertarian bend, you are never getting there because we're going to negotiate half of it away before I even come back. 8 grand for that car, Joe. I just negotiated away self-ownership, property rights, LGBTQ rights. You're going to negotiate up to 10, right? But if you agree on the 8, then you just gave up everything else. Your social programs, your guaranteed, universal income. So we always meet in the middle, which means nobody's really pushing progress. Mm-hmm. And we run down the same path. And that same path, inarguably, is we spend more money to cover more people, more than we have. Our social programs start to fail. We're all worried about retirement. We're on a path that unless you see somebody try to break it, like a Mandami or a Trump, you never really see any bias, one way or the other.
Yeah, and if you do the break strategy where you go offer 2, the risk is that everybody's pissed off in the end. It was insulted by even making the offer.
Sure.
But that's the beginning of the break it strategy, not the end of the break it strategy. We have a really limited focus on things. We need things to be wrapped up in 30 seconds. If it lasts a month and you have to wait to get your way, it's almost not on the table. Where I think the patience of the Trump strategy is that he'd make the offer of 2,000, know you're going to get pissed off, go to somebody else to make another offer, use that counter offer as a reintroduction of a new conversation, use a carrot somewhere to hype it up, and all of a sudden the same thing happened, but it took 19 steps, and it was really convoluted and complicated.
Sure. So, but if you stay on Trump, he did offer the 2 grand. So, and then we negotiated back to 6, and you think he lost. He wanted 6 all along. He just rode you down a road, right? And so that's obviously one of the problems that people have with the left side of the political sphere is they don't take that same kind of extreme with any authority. They don't have the boxing gloves to push it. Mm-hmm. And Trump, for whatever you like of the man or don't like of the man, he certainly can build a coalition. Mm-hmm. He can certainly build an army behind him. Mm-hmm. He can certainly explain something that gets the populace to say, "Oh, heck yeah," right? And now he's got the authority and the boxing gloves to kind of go forward. And then we've granted him the power and granted him more power over the years where he can start to make some of these things happen.
And I know that hurts your libertarian heart to even say those words, doesn't it?
I don't like it a bit. I don't like it a bit. So, but I lose my argument all the time, right? We still kind of go the same way. So you just kind of have to, make your little changes yourself and kind of, respect other people around you and just let the world go on, to some extent. There's a really good argument that can be made, I think, too, about what is the real impact that Trump or Clinton or Bush or whatever, really have on your life. Unless you're a soldier, or you're the family of a soldier where they're actually putting you physically in harm's way. Do you have any idea what the price of oil really does to your life, on a daily basis? I mean, do you have any idea what the size of the debt does to your life on a daily basis? And I'm not saying people do or don't. I'm just saying it is so disconnected and far from us. We should be way more interested in what the new mayor is doing here in Youngstown than we are with what Trump is doing, But the national news and the way that, that story is presented to us, to your point, is it's just split left and right, sells tickets, everybody's arguing, rubbernecking accidents, and we're fighting about things that at the end of the day, we probably couldn't point to something in our life that's different. Except the on-off button on our cars now, which apparently is going away.
Yeah.
Right. So silly stuff.
Speaking of local stuff, I saw a post from you the other day about supporting local. And, I was rallying behind that one sucker, but I want to dissect it a little bit and see if you've got any theories on, like a lot of what we believe in doesn't always translate into actions. Like we feel we should do this, but when it brass tacks, when you get a hard thing to do, a total inconvenience, like what you do and what you say you should do, or could be completely different things.
Mm-hmm. So I think to the post that I threw up was there's a statement that a lot of us make. I'm one of those people that make this, that we ought to be supporting all of the local efforts. So buy local, go to your local hardware store. If it's a name brand, it's a franchise-owned name brand, so you're still supporting local. Buy less from Amazon, buy less from Walmart. I run a CPA firm. If I need some help, I need to go find a local resource. As you know, we run a bar. I need local music. I don't need outside music. I want to buy local craft beers instead of buying Budweiser and putting it on the shelf, right? So that decision on its own, certainly has some market impact on, who you attract and to work with you. But if you make the claim, if you're going to really kind of say, Youngstown has a future, I want my kids to grow up here, I want people to understand the values that are here, buy local, and then you don't, that's a hypocrisy that is often hidden behind the mantra, right? Mm-hmm. So you can as easily look at it and say, well, how many times does Amazon show up in my driveway? And you can certainly say, Paul, Amazon's not local, right? And I can say, well, that driver is. That driver owns that truck. It's a little business. So I am kind of supporting him. And I only buy from local stores on Amazon. But you kind of see the rub, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to prove that out. Like, is this really true? Like, when we say buy local, and it used to be, at a bank, and we had a very local-centric strategy, and we would talk about banking local and stuff like that. And does it really work? Do people really buy local, right? And so, no, they don't, And so statistically proving, and I'm a data guy through and through. You got hard to get me off of the data couch. We say things about twice the rate of what we actually do them, right? And that's probably universal across just your human experience in the first place. I'm going to, start lifting weights on January 1 because some magic ball dropped and now my life is going to change. Well, how many of us do that, and then how many of us
bail out by March?
Yes. So January's famous for a non-alcohol dry January. Yeah, we sold quite a bit of booze, at the bar in January.
You're fearing the dip that didn't happen.
The fear of the dip that didn't happen. We bought a bunch of non-alcohol stuff, and guess how much is still left in those bottles?
A lot.
All of it. Yeah, so, I think that's a great, I'd love to, so I know that you are wildly invested in Youngstown. I know that you preach it. I also know that as a businessman, you know that you have to live and grow and create customers and kind of keep moving forward, a bias towards progress. But it's interesting that we've seen. What was was it Kid Youngstown? Who used to be?
Kid.
Phil Kidd?
Phil Kidd.
Okay.
That's him.
So there's been a number of people that have come by through the years that have just kind of like warmed up and been like way Youngstown and then kind of petered off, mm-hmm. right? And that's because we still talk about things twice as much as we do them, mm-hmm. right? So I'll give you an example. So I like to mentor new businesses. I think you do too. I like to help people start something. I like to be a voice that is found valuable by somebody who wants to maybe pursue something that maybe they wouldn't have if they just weren't encouraged, right? I don't like to force people into failure. I don't want to tell everybody running your own business is the right thing to do. It has a lot of risks and, a lot of stress associated with it, right? But I like to find folks that are trying to do something to kind of better their lives, and just need some encouragement, to do it. So when I talk to somebody and we start to have these conversations, I might bring up Youngstown Studio. And so I've had the benefit of seeing it from its genesis to where it is now, and you're a wildly different company than you were 5 or 6 years ago. You would probably agree, right? Youngstown Computer, right? I met you when you were still on WKBN, right? Way different Joe Danyi than before, for sure. But so's Pelican 3 and so's Brew Lounge. And we kind of grow. But so is the coffee shop, that we helped start. However, most of those folks, at least in my experience, are very unaware of the resources that are available in Youngstown, right? And to some extent, I think that's your problem and my problem. It's our fault. We're quiet, right? We are noisy when we choose to be noisy, mm-hmm. but as a collective community, we are not noisy at all. We do a huge disservice to ourselves to provide the advantages that are Youngstown. For goodness sakes, we argued for 3 months about a stupid logo on the side of the mall. right? And can we claim that? It's like, good Lord, people, like, this isn't going anywhere. You know what I mean? Great, go have your fun. So what can we do to continue to shout the area? So it doesn't have to be Youngstown, Canfield, Boardman, Courtsville, South Range. Like, we live in a valley here that's pretty expansive, with a ton of resources and some really unique founders for some really big and popular companies here. We know about YBI, but because of YBI and YSU, we have some of the strongest and largest bandwidth of internet into this community than any area in Ohio, right? Too bad we can't use it for data centers.
I think that's gonna be next topic.
Yeah. So, I think people, at least on that local subject we were talking about, I think we have a lot of work to do, and I think the people that scream local need to lead, and I'm one of them, right? I need to lead more, I think, or at least be a good example, for that, because money that leaves a town is like cancer. So you have to have the capital has to stay in the area for it to work, right? So if you put money somewhere and it moves and it goes down to North Carolina and is operated out of a bank in Raleigh, that money's not here. It's gone, right? Well, there's rules. They have to reinvest back here. Let me tell you about reality, right? That's not what happens. If I go and I spend all my money at Home Depot and not the franchise Ace Hardware, or the local hardware store that's 2 miles down the street from our house, right? That money's gone. It's gone, right? And so you have to reinvest back in your community somehow. And not all of us are venture capitalists or business starters or capital throwers out to people. We invest our capital in the stuff we buy, right? And so way long explanation maybe to that post, but it's very disappointing.
Let me add 2 things to that, because I think
please.
the real reason ambition kind of fizzles out are for 2 reasons that I don't know how to master, but they're still part of the equation. Number 1 is reciprocation.
Okay.
All right. So I'm a consumer. I know when I'm going downtown, there are easier places to go. I'm going to inconvenience myself by going to a place, and I feel good going into it because I'm doing a good deed by helping my community go there.
Sure.
Right. And on the other side of that is, if I'm going to do that, what does everybody else involved do? Do they treat me like I'm a transaction and I'm taken for granted?
Yeah.
Or are they saying, you know what? I know you're downtown and I want to make this, in all of my capacities, I want to make this super easy on you and thank you for being down here. So if I come down here and I can't, nobody thought through where I'm going to park, or they're super eager to give me a parking ticket, or any other of a number of reasons that make that to be a harder thing than just going to Lone Star or a chain brand who thought through all of those things ahead of time and want my experience to be better. The second one are artificial headwinds, right?
Okay.
Somebody along the way, right, sees that they've now tapped into these super eager people that want to do-gooders, and they get greedy about it, and they take advantage of those people and create either a drama headwind or a financial headwind or something that makes them doing what you were doing for as a favor, right? It makes it so hard and such a bad experience that I never want to do that thing again, or I have to be in the perfect position to trade off my good deed for doing that for those people.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear any examples you have of the drama headwind, because I tend to emotionally think that that's very true. I have some experience feeling that as well. But let me share a story with you. So there's I'd have to get the book and let you know what it is. I could look it up on my phone, but there's a number 1 restaurant in the world was 11 Madison Street in Manhattan, if I recall correctly. So it's a book's a story about a restaurateur that kind of grew up and built the number 1 restaurant in the world. So it's basically a lineage of experience and troubles and heartache and overcome. There's a story in that book, and we call it, and we have an ownership group here in Youngstown that helps businesses kind of grow and make good decisions. We talk about this in our group as the buy the hot dog moment, right? So there's a story goes that this guy's running a 4-star Michelin hotel or a restaurant, trying to get to 5-star. So he's already world famous. There's already a way too expensive menu. It's already filled with things to make your trip there amazing. But he can't get to 5 stars, right? And so he tells the story of this couple sitting at the table and he's walking through that day, just pure happenstance, right? Just pure happenstance. Walks through that day, and he hears a woman at the table. Now, mind you, this restaurant, when you're done, would bring you a bottle of Dom Perrier for free to end your meal, right? You're paying for it. Like, your steak was pretty darn expensive, right? But
Right.
they're already kind of treating you like this. What? You're just getting experience that you're just not going to get normally. Here's a woman say, man, I can't believe I got to make that flight. You know, I'm not going to get that hot dog from the New York street vendor. Like, I've had a wonderful vacation, but like, there's one thing that I haven't got. She's sitting in a restaurant where she's probably going to pay several grand for a meal with her family. Like, an experience a lot of us never have. Okay. Owner walks out, buys a hot dog from a street vendor, a $2 hot dog, loads it up with the New York sauce, and then runs in and wraps it up and gives it to her, and then says, let me get your luggage to the airport, save you the time. I want you to enjoy the hot dog that you had from New York. When you get home, call me, and we'll ship you one a month for the next year. Buy the hot dog. And so what that person did is say, I have the ability, as a political leader in this environment, as a business owner, as just a person cutting my neighbor's grass, whatever it is, I have the ability to make the next person's day memorable, right? And to your point, I don't think that that's happening every chance we can do it inside Youngstown, and there's lots of examples we can go through, but that increases the loyalty factor as well.
It's exactly, and doesn't make the person who, you know, made that thing happen be embarrassed that once you delivered something like bringing a bunch of people downtown, that those people weren't taken for granted, and then you're like, I begged these people to come here, and now they're here. This is how you're going to treat them?
Yeah, for sure. So how long does it take you to get to downtown Pittsburgh for an evening? An hour?
Yeah.
How long does it take me to get ready and come downtown for a half an hour? For 30 minutes more, I eliminate all the crap.
Yep.
I got plenty of parking. I got plenty of places to go. I got plenty of people that are reaching their hand out to help me in. I got people making sure I get to the right door. You know, it's a different experience, but, you know, comparing Pittsburgh to Youngstown is probably a little bit, you know, of a gap. But so what? So what? We have the ability, every time somebody steps foot in Youngstown or Market Street in Boardman or the Southern Park Mall, pick it, I don't care, to make that experience everything that they hoped it would be. And it doesn't cost us a dime to do it, right? Buy the hot dog. It costs $2, you know. So I think that's an area where, and I don't want to sound hard on Youngstown because I live here and I love Youngstown and I want my kids to grow up here. The reason I do what I do is because I want my kids to see a future in Youngstown. But I don't want us to put artificial barriers in front of them that continue to support the reasons that everybody just kind of placate chatters as to why they can't be in Youngstown anymore. There's no resources. They can't make money. Going downtown is hard. There's no really good restaurants, you know. All that is so wrong.
Right.
We just have to shout it out. You ever eaten at Vernon's? Oh, my God. You know?
So I want to append the mantra. So
Sure.
Yes, you should buy local. And then the second part of that, and local, when they visit you, make them feel like they're the center of the universe.
You have
How about
to.
that?
You have to. Yeah. So that's a good, yeah.
It's hard to say. Maybe you can punch it up a little bit.
I can't override the king, right? We've kind of already settled this. Yeah, but I mean, so we could sit and we may continue to. We could complain about politics. We can complain about property taxes. We can talk about AI. At the end of the day, we are talking about things that unless we get involved in them, we're not going to change them. We are just going to argue amongst ourselves, and it's a chatterbox over 2 beers between 2 guys. But we're not changing anything. Now, if you get involved in politics, now you're going to change it. If you get involved in AI, now you have, you know, a voice in it. If you want Youngstown to grow, you got to start getting involved in it, you know? And I think you and I have had these conversations a lot. I think we're in our way a lot. I think more people have a negative immediate response than a positive immediate response. I think the data centers is an exact example of that. But we have to start. We have to have a bias towards progress.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, let me read some comments and then we're going to talk data
Oh my
centers,
gosh, there we
because
go.
you mentioned it twice, so I think that
I love
requires.
MLBO brothers too. Look at that. They smooched me.
Aw.
Aren't they great?
Hey, is that the guy that disagrees with us on everything?
It is.
Love you, Paul. Oh shit, you can piss people off so bad they won't use your company. Someone should have told us this. Bob said your tech show is sorely missed. In fact, a regular show with 2 days of you would fill a need in the valley. Playball says KJ Weaver. Is that the author you were talking about? Maybe I don't know who KJ Weaver is.
I don't think it's the author. I can look it up for him before we're done.
Okay, and then Isaac says the situation happens in the show The Bear. The Bear is a good show. Have you watched that?
It? No, what is it?
It's like the kid from Lip. From what's that real crude humor show? The family, the single or the oldest daughter raising the family, and Lip is kind of this rebel that always gets in trouble.
Oh man, I'm
that
so
dude.
far out of
anyway,
this. I'm so sorry.
So anyway, he is running. The whole show is him running a restaurant. He takes over a restaurant for a family member. He's a highly trained chef, and he takes this old, broken down restaurant and makes it into something that's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like firsthand perspective on what it's like to be a chef, the things they say, the conversations.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm working in a restaurant when I'm watching that show. Is what it comes down to.
Gotcha.
All right, data center time.
Oh gosh.
All right,
make this
so
trip?
what?
You're gonna make this move?
Yeah, I am
Okay.
absolutely.
So now we're gonna
make
start
this-
fighting. So let's go.
Yes. Now I think we might agree on most things.
We will probably.
So let's talk about the Hubbards, the Vienna, the
Lordstowns, yep.
and also over in McDonald, that data centers, huge interest in coming to areas just like ours that have lots of utility connection, low property values, old manufacturing warehouse facilities, everything you really need to build something without the air pollution, noise pollution, all of those things that we're already kind of used to that,
Yes,
right? Kind
yes.
of thing. And these councils and villages that are standing in the way of even considering or talking about or researching or whatever, these moratoriums that are just endless because the people are insecure about having them in their community, and then the councils who won't really even get at a realistic conversation to see whether or not it's a good or bad play.
Yep.
Your feelings on the endless moratoriums. I think we agree on this, right?
We 100% agree on this, and so AI data centers, all the councils, the trustees that are meeting and they're making these decisions, runs right back into the libertarian kind of blood that runs through my veins, and that is get the hell out of the way. The market is going to take care of itself. And if you talk to me about the amount of electricity that thing is going to use, I'm like, great, we're going to solve it, right? I mean,
That's what we do.
So we are literally in an era where, yes, there is going to be some short-term pain. We have to figure out this power. Ohio's technology plan wants to generate as much power to run a record number of data center applications that would provide the resources for 3 mid-sized states. We are literally in the technology rollout of the greatest size, the largest scale technology rollout size in history in Ohio, and you want to shut it down. So what you're doing when you say that as a councilman, as a trustee, as a representative sitting in Columbus, whatever it is you don't trust that we have enough talent and support and ingenuity in the state to fix that problem. So you're going to take the largest, truly Cambrian moment. AI is shifting what the future of not only the economy is going to be, it's going to shift your experience as a human. No doubt, no question at all, and saying no. So who's going to get it? Michigan, West Virginia, any other Midwest state that's got the perfect temperature and the perfect year and climate and the perfect access to national resources is going to take it, and Ohio will lose out. So there's a little bit of vested, hey, this is my state, my town, let's do this here. In Lordstown, I can be at in 10 minutes, and I want to see that place do well. I don't want another chicken farm right over there. We want something that's going to run. So it's greatly disturbing to me to see us literally looking at an industry that will change your life probably in 18 months, not 10 years, and say no. It's ridiculous. I had a lot of opinions. I think it's inappropriate. But what do you do? You've given power to these people, and their natural response is no. That's their gut response. This might be an interesting. My natural gut to stuff is yes, but right. It's not no. It's yes, but right. So yes, we got to do this, but we have an electricity problem to solve, or we have a water problem to solve. I think you talked about this on the show one time about put out your standards, and when people want to build something, let them know your standards, and when they come back with their RFP or RFQ, it meets those standards, i.e. water. Most people probably don't know that all the data centers that's been suggested around here solve the water problem. It's not a water problem anymore. It doesn't exist. but it's on your list of complaints. So I think we do a huge disservice to the Valley and to the future of the Valley when we shut down industries that are clearly the largest industries in the economic future of the globe. Say, nope, we don't want it here. And that's the point where I talked about earlier, where I think people start with a negative view, like, and find reasons why not, instead of finding reasons why yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I got in my time machine and I traveled 5 years in the future. And the conversation in Youngstown was, hey, why are all these other communities so data center driven? And why do they have all these jobs? And why is there so much opportunity? Where's ours?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you go back, slide back today and tell them, hey, communities are going to say yes to this. Right.
Sure.
It is going
And
to
they
happen
are.
in large scale.
Yep.
And if you're not doing it, I know you want it to be proven out. I know you want it to be safe so that it's a good good participant in your economy and in your communities, right? But if you wait until there's no risk, then everybody who said yes to it and were willing to take the risk already got the thing that you're going to want. When it's non-risky, it's also non-lucrative, and
That's correct.
you're not getting chosen.
That's correct. That's 100%, right? So the reward for the risk is front-loaded all the time, right? Just in your bell curve, it's in that first 15.5% or 13.5% or so. It's always there. The guys on the end, the laggards, they get the benefit of, okay, we have steady jobs, and now there's a pension here, but they lost all that wealth build or that, lucrative response to the upfront risk. And that is a characteristic of an environment that is yet to let go of what was successful 50 years ago and the pain of that still exists today. What I will say, and again, this is probably going to tick a couple of people off, but a lot of the people that remember those times, they're not running the show, anymore. So hopefully there's another generation coming up that looks at a data center and thinks, wow, look at all the stuff I can do with it, right? We have a whole generation of kids that are built off of iPads and computers and iPhones, good, bad, or otherwise. They have a very different view of that data center than somebody who has been in that farm community for 60 years, and they just see a big building going up, and it's taking up, land, and it's going to be noisy, and my electric rates are going to go up. All very real problems that need very real responses, but those are yes, but problems.
Exactly.
They're not
more conversation
no.
and a moratorium says, shut up, we don't want it, stop talking about it.
Yeah, because this economy, this ecosystem is growing so fast that by the time we come around to having our chatter in a council meeting and then put it out for public comment and then make a decision, company's already made another one. There is so much money being thrown and invested in what is the future economy, and people are investing it now because they believe that we're going to need this stuff, right? And AI is just making it all the more realistic. That we're going to be behind. We're just going to be late to the game.
Yeah.
And then on a further note, this is the most libertarian economic development ever.
Yes, it is.
This decentralizes everything, right? And so now, the ability to do great things or build your own future or economize social services or allow us to, do better at how we support all of our citizenry without increasing all this authority that us libertarians care about is right in front of us. It is literally right in front of us. Yeah.
Keith says, I want to talk about Toyota. I have no doubt the MLO Bros tomorrow will be talking all about Toyota. And I don't know if you've been following that drama.
A little bit, but I run from drama pretty fast these days.
Okay, so pause on that conversation. MLO Bros will pick that up. They've got a ton more of exchanges than I can share with you, so that'll be more interesting if they do it. Bob says the backlash against data centers is similar to the hysteria against nuclear industry that rose during the late 70s and 80s. Not as dramatic, owing to 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, but similar in the hyperbolic cries of the NIMBY. But we all love the benefits derived from the tech sector.
Well, love it or not, you benefit from it whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
And it's all right here.
Kim says, Keith Kolovos, tomorrow is the day with the ML Brothers. Tune in. Bob says, our electricity problem is not part due to our hysteric bias against the nuclear industry. Well, I think what the typical citizen thinks is that everything is status quo. The capacity that we have can't be changed. It's not malleable. If you have a customer that wants to buy a bunch of electricity, that all the providers are going to sit there and say, I don't know how to make electricity.
Sure.
If we won't adapt up and work with the commodities that are available for purchase. Innovations too. I mean, it might not be nuclear. It might be solar. It might be natural gas. All of them should be. When you have customers that want to buy big volume of something that it's not scarce, but we're close to capacity in some of those areas, that there will be an investor that says, I'm going to be the prime provider. I'm going to put something up. Meta and Google putting nuclear reactors in the ocean to provide the power. I mean, all of this stuff happens because it becomes necessary. You won't do it before it's necessary. It'll be after it's necessary.
Sure. So circle back here.
Yes. I did a lot right there.
You did, yeah. Circle back to the beginning here where everybody's got to be split on everything. There's got to be an argument for everything. So our society is now built on rubbernecking to accidents. Everything's a silly argument, right? In 2013, the state passed a tax law in the state of Ohio. That tax law provided a long-term benefit all the way through the 2050s for tax-free data center and computer industry investment in the state of Ohio. We set this problem 2013. So in 2013, somebody thought, man, it would be really awesome if we could get Google in here and Facebook in here, now Meta. And guess who's in Ohio now? Facebook and Google. Guess who gets a lot of tax breaks? Facebook and Google. Guess who's paying all the property taxes? Us, right? And now we have electricity sitting, as a problem on top of this. However, what's the benefit of your life today because of that benefit in Facebook and a Google, right? So again, circle back to kind of libertarian stuff. Google, I would have considered at some point in time a monopoly. It is this behemoth thing in the room that if you wanted to start to develop any type of applications or you wanted to start to develop any type of technical capacity, quick and easy, you couldn't do it. You just
You'd have to kiss the ring, and
you'd
it's
have
too
to kiss
expensive.
it. Maybe they'll buy you out at the end, and you kind of win on that end. But you're fighting a behemoth. Well, all of that investment, all of that engineering, all of that innovation and creation and ideation, we now have AI, and I can compete with Google the moment we walk out of here. You and I could create an app that we could sell to the neighbor while we're talking on this meeting, right? And I know you've done some of that, and I've done a bunch of it. It's amazing. So let's kick them out. Let's not allow any more innovation here or be a part of that anymore and just let somebody else do it. It's absolutely aggravating. The other problem that comes to mind for me is, fine, we can't use nuclear energy because of two totally non-related technologies that were built on way substandard. As we were learned, coal mines fall down too. We still mine coal, right? So, and now we can't do anything because of these two problems, right? Well, okay, let's use electricity. No. Where are we going to go? I can't use coal. I can't use nuclear. I can't use wind. So I'm going to use electricity, which we can readily create. We just have to figure out how to scale it. No, can't do that. So where's the yes? So again, for me, bend towards progress, yes, but. And we just no. Moratorium, no. Every trade school in the area, every one, there's 4 or 5 of them running around in these counties. Every high school program that's got kids trying to go out to college. I work with a bunch of colleges on conferences and cybersecurity component training. Every one of them is trying to figure out how to train their students on how to get into the boom that is Lordstown, OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, data centers. And we're looking at them as a valley and going, well, you're going to have to take that job somewhere else, not here. It is just this compounding problem that, again, Youngstown has to shift its thoughts. You hear good thoughts from the new mayor. He's got some pretty good positive responses. Let's see that move forward, right? You get a lot of positive responses from the restaurateurs and the hotels and, down here on Federal. Let's keep that going, right? And keep moving up. But the pushback to some of these, again, Cambrian changes, the decisions that will literally change the future of Youngstown is no. The answer is no.
Yeah.
And I just find it damaging.
And I don't think we use the laboratory that is the United States as often, and we don't give it a lot of good press Where if you have a state that decides that it wants to embrace nuclear technology and they do it, and you might have 20 states that are iffy on it and not open to it.
Yeah.
But then you have a model that you can be like, oh, they did it, and it wasn't Fukushima #2, and nobody died, and they have low electricity rates, and oh, maybe now that the risk curve is a little bit different, that maybe we can start doing that too.
All right, trivia night.
Yes.
How many nuclear plants are operating in the United States right now?
I'll guess
More than zero.
more than zero, 100.
How many Fukushimas have you heard about?
Zero.
So I mean, we have to be aware of the risks. I think that's a fair statement, and we have to have the brighter minds and the people that are willing to sit through and deliberately walk through problems, understand those, and provide avenues to address them, mitigate them, or we're not going to take on that risk. You know, whatever it is. But a risk assessment never starts with no. It just doesn't. It may end with no, but that's after you've kind of gone through all of these things.
Well, we're sounding reasonable, but this is engineering thinking. This is how an engineer processes problems.
Sure.
Regular people are so devoid of engineering minds and mathematical minds that it becomes something that's easily, I mean, the media, politicians, fear really works, and it poisons that brain from even trying. If I can get you scared enough about something that it's going to be Fukushima, even though it didn't happen, and you're not real good at calculating probabilities,
For sure.
it might be dead. Fukushima might be all that's required for you to say no.
For sure. Right. Trump's going to bring in the National Guard and take over all the towns and make us do X, Y, Z. And that flies. Not going to happen.
Right.
Right. So, yeah, it's a learning curve. And I don't want to sound like overly negative, but we are getting better. And we are seeing more voices like yours, and hopefully I'm, heard at some point in time. We are seeing more voices like the mayor's voice. The MLO bros do a really good job of kind of pointing out things we need to do better. So we are getting, better, but we need to get better at scale, right? It's just like everything else. Lots of places, they just don't have any customers, or they got a really good product. At some point, you have to figure out how to scale that. And get it out into the market more so that people listen. Make no mistake, living in Youngstown, you're selling a product. The city of Youngstown is selling a product, and it is lifestyle, access to accoutrements. Holy cow, we have a world-famous opera or orchestra here. What are we doing to kind of push ourselves out and sell those benefits to people so that they want to be here? And that includes the ability to make a very good job in a very good industry because somebody built a very quiet data center on a hill, across the county line.
So now, I used to have this conversation with Herman from the Business Journal on a regular basis.
Sure.
And we used to talk brain drain all the time, like you were talking about. People
use that word all the time.
But the angle on it is that the people who have the engineering mind, have the big planning ability, can see through the noise and still stay on track, are valuable in markets that don't have as much pushback as we do in Youngstown. So let's just say you take 20 kids who can see the potential, and they're like, all we got to do is stay on message and remind the principal.
Yeah.
And they're like, I can't make as much money here, and I'm going to get more pushback here. And it's so much easier in every market for me to go to and share my able brain, and they leave.
Yeah.
And so everybody who could and would have done it
Is gone.
has no interest or no reason to stay here and do it here.
Yeah. So, concept of brain drain. It is literally the 2-word synopsis of why I do what I do, why I build businesses, why I start them. It's why I live in Youngstown. I live in Boardman, but live in the Valley. It's what I teach my kids. It's why I put on a conference that has high school and college kids in it. Brain drain is the reason. So I want to drive down Main Street with my son in the car, okay, and have him see opportunities. I also want him to see the effect of people supporting the community that provide those opportunities, right? I don't want him to see the complaints. I don't want him to see the no's. He's going to, and I can talk it through with him, but I want him to see, like, there is there's a path here, and Youngstown's one of those viable solutions. There's a lot of doors in front of you. My sons hate when I give them the door speech. There's lots of doors in front of you. Youngstown can be a door. I can't make as much money here as I can make somewhere else. All right, where do you want to go? I'm going to go to, Los Angeles. So my oldest son said that exact same thing. And God bless him. go out and experience life. Get out, experience the rest of the world, and then bring your stuff back, which is the follow around loop to brain drain. Go learn your stuff and bring it back. Go become an excellent engineer and bring it back. Go become a world-class scientist, bring it back, right? So he went out to Los Angeles and was paying something along the lines of like $2,900 to rent a room, with 5 other people living in the most expensive place in the world, right? So no, you're not going to make as much here as you make out in Santa Monica, but let me tell you how much you're going to spend for that house, right? We live in an area where the real estate values are lower than our placement on the economic scale for average income countrywide, which means it is cheaper with more benefits to live in Youngstown, and you will live a wealthier life here than you would if you flew out to Santa Monica and made your $250,000 a year and thought that was success because of the price of everything else out there, right? So I don't think I've ever heard that message. Not from a school, for sure. Absolutely. Not from a guidance counselor, for sure. But that is a legitimate answer. So for everybody, Joe and I live in the same neighborhood. Take our house and go put it in Nashville, Tennessee. What's it cost? More than you paid for it here. Way more, right? How much time and effort does it take you to drive from your house, and what's it take to get down here? 9 miles, 8 miles or something? How much traffic do you get in, right? How long does it take you to drive down? Or let your car drive down, Joe. Do that in Nashville. Get on the freeway at business rush hour and go 9 miles. How long does it take you? Like, there's just so much that we've isolated or kind of, bucketized these swim lanes of success, and we have forgotten about kind of everything else that makes the area an incredibly nice place to be. We mentioned it's an hour to Pittsburgh. I can get to, 5 professional sports team within an hour. I can probably get to 24 minor league baseball places within an hour drive of here. We have a world-class orchestra. We have the Warner Brothers that started here. Salem is historic. We got the Underground Railroad. We have the largest internet pipe in Ohio coming in here, at least what matches Columbus. There's just a ton of stuff. YSU is a fantastic university. YBI is screaming successful.
And what makes us attractive, like those tech companies that you mentioned, where we had to give these big tax abatements for 50 years in order to get here. Yeah. We don't necessarily need to incentivize like we do. We have access to all of what you just mentioned there. We have low cost of living. We have a labor force that is way underutilized here. We have specialties that every city does with, 1/10 of the cost of what it would be. So if let's just say you kept that tax base, just them and being able to operate with all of those, lower entry costs, you couple that with if you're going to start a business in Ohio and all of your risks or your cost of your risk are lower, you could take bigger risks and make bigger jumps, where if I go to Los Angeles and my rates are already high, the pressure on my success of that business means that it's a pass-fail type of thing. I can't rebound 6 times and trial something out.
Sure.
I do go to a low-cost area like ours, and I can wrench on something for years until I actually get it right. So I think we undersell that added value to what our area represents.
Oh, 100%. So this was probably a topic that didn't generate a lot of the animosity and back and forth conflict that you wanted, because I think we are
geeky, nerdy people talking about.
We're just in it, and. But, so counter that. We're both here, right? And without kind of putting you on the spot on Trivia Night again, I don't know how many businesses that you have started personally. I don't know the amount of money that you invested in those businesses personally. I don't know how many other companies you have helped personally, right? And I'm not going to shout mine out. It's just, we don't need to do that. But I've gone through a process of starting stuff here, so we're putting our money where our mouth is.
Absolutely.
Right? I want to hire Youngstown State students or Valley students, or, give me a radius here, and I want to hire the talented people here. I want to train people here. I want to help you start your coffee shop. I want to help you start your CPA firm. Doesn't mean I'm the right guy to do it. You might find somebody else that's better suited. But we're putting our investment, and mind you, we've talked about money as kind of mostly the overlying stuff here. brother, my time is more important than any dollar amount you can give me.
100%.
It is absolutely there. So I'm willing to give the most valuable part of my time back into this town to try to get it to grow. Will I be successful? I don't know. But the investment side is really where your words start to turn into actions. And we just have so much here to offer that it just takes a breath and a step back and, get out of the drama and the weeds and focus on things that we think are going to be beneficial. If there's anything kind of aggressive to say about it, I think our local communities do I don't know if I can swear on air here, but they do a very shitty job of advertising why people should stay here and the future of the community. Look, Ohio, so circle back to data centers. Ohio has the best, not second best, not third best, the best average climate year-round for a data center. The best. Ohio has the most natural resources to provide those data centers. We happen to live on a couple of really big lakes and a lot of rivers run through here, right? The best. We also have some of the best schools and engineers in the country. We're not number one, we're not MIT, but we have some pretty damn good schools in Ohio kind of pumping out stuff. We also have some of the best electricity rates. Sorry for those who think it's getting really expensive. We're still low
We've been low for a long
time, right? So Meta, Facebook, came out, and their head of organic growth, so the people that are building the data centers and signing these agreements, said there is no need. Our decisions are not made from tax incentives. So we should shout that loudly on a T-shirt, right? They're made because they're spending trillions of dollars over decades to create an infrastructure that they are then going to benefit from, when all this stuff starts to come to fruition. They're not worried about $90 billion over 10 years of some tax return. They just aren't, right? But we think they do. We come to the table and go, oh my God, you are so big and you're so awesome, and it's the pretty girl you're afraid to go ask out on a date, And
we have one bullet in our chamber.
We got one bullet in our chamber, and all it is tax incentives.
Yep.
Hell no. There is so much here. How much are they going to pay for the land if they buy it in the valley? Way less than other ones. How much water do they have access to? Way more than other ones.
How many regulations and things are going to have to jump through?
How friendly is the local government? Well, we're finding that out.
Yeah, right.
In the wrong direction. But so the companies that we shoot that bullet at are routinely telling us that bullet doesn't matter. You can shoot at me all you want. It just doesn't matter. And yet we go,
that's it.
Somebody give me another gun. I need another bullet. So
Thank you, sir.
Hey, brother. Yeah. So that's kind of where, my angst lies in some of the stuff that's going on. And to your point, when I read a news article or I see something come across a Facebook feed or an Instagram post and it's another city said yes to a data center, and then the next post is our council put a moratorium on data centers, I'm like,
I just got a text while we were talking from a council person.
Yeah.
About this. So let me just
yeah,
see what
please.
he said.
All right.
Because I think he was talking shit.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, he just asked a question. Did you see why I put a moratorium on the data center?
Okay.
No, I did not see your reason. And maybe, moratoriums are a good tool that if you need to buy a little time to do a little bit more research, bring in more experts, quelling the fears of the community, so be it. But having an open-ended 180-day moratorium on something only because you don't want to deal with it and is your way to kill it, essentially, that's the part that I disagree with. 30-day ones, no problem.
Yeah, so I don't know this councilman, and I'm not looking to pick a fight with anybody, but you ought to explain that more in a text message to a morning show.
Bring it.
Come here, show up, and talk to Joe directly. Go on WKBN, WFMJ. We have 3 news stations in town. Don't know if anybody knows that they're here, that literally put out a show 3 or 4 times a day where you can claim your space. So claim it.
Yeah.
And tell us what you're doing.
And a phone call comes in. What do you think? It's him?
Let's find out.
It's queuing up here. Let me read a couple comments before
Sure.
we move on from that topic in case I missed anything. TMI was exaggerated. Chernobyl was a flawed reactor design, not even present in U.S. reactors, as Paul's point. Dennis said, feelings spoil the logical well.
Facts over feelings. Yeah.
For sure.
Or my feelings don't care about whatever. What's
And
the
Mike's,
saying?
I have a
factual
vulgar
feeling.
version of that. I'm not going to say it. Any update on the Toyota Boardman? We're going to talk about that tomorrow, Michael. So
Yeah.
stay tuned there. Let's see what this phone call has to do with. All right, caller, you're on.
Hi, first time listener, long time. Or no, I said that wrong.
Other way around.
Long time
Yeah.
listener, first time caller.
There you go.
What's up?
Hey, hi, Paul. It's Luke from the Emma Lovers. How are you, sir?
That's good.
good, Luke.
How's my mortgage loan application coming? You guys are slower than dirt.
It's going good. It's going good. I'm not gonna lie. You're doing a fine job, but everybody out here would rather be watching Kellen than you. So just throwing that out there.
Oh, I would rather be watching her too than me. So I appreciate everybody's thoughts. So
So reason for the call, and Joe and I go after this, and you guys are talking about these moratoriums.
Yeah.
I am so tired of these local governments putting moratoriums on everything, and all they're doing is just stalling and stalling and stalling to either the business that they're putting a moratorium on goes away, or the people lose interest in it and then they could squash it. Just make an effing decision in 30 days. I think the state of Ohio should make it illegal for local governments to do a moratorium longer than 30 days. Your thoughts, Paul?
So there are times when I am really encouraged that Luke is moving towards a more libertarian philosophy, and then he talks about property taxes, and I turn off the TV. So look,
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
You and I can go after that sometime.
We sure
You know,
can.
that could be a whole hour and a half.
yeah. You're exactly right. So I've kind of put this back to more of a first principles problem. So if I'm hired into public office, all right, what's my responsibility? To do something. The most successful politician I could think of is one that does shit. They just go in office, they don't do anything. Just don't change anything. Just be quiet, right? And you don't have to inject yourself into every decision that the rest of the market is trying to make. You're there for politics. You're there to kind of make sure that the economy works in your environment. You're not there to create jobs. The private market does that. You're meant to make sure that, we got enough police and firemen and rights aren't being... You're not there to tell me whether or not the data center AI movement is an industry that's allowed to be in this environment. I think that is a bogus response. But again, bend towards progress. If they want to say, hey, I don't know enough about this yet, and this is scary, and my constituents are yelling at me, let's put a 30-day pause on this and talk, and then we're going to make a decision, to Luke's point. These 180-day stuff is just clear, past the buck. This thing's going to go away, and then we can revisit it later.
Yep.
And it's bullshit. And they're going to say, we were right, and we're just going to lose all these opportunities. At some point in time, you can piss off an industry this much, and then it goes.
Go
It
somewhere
just
else.
goes. Ohio's got
Right.
lots of miles in it, right?
Yep.
I get out of Mahoning Valley, I'll go put one down near Steubenville. Done. You know what I mean? We're going to lose. And I just think I'm with you guys. We're not arguing about this, which is terrible.
I have the perfect example
All right.
of a local town using a moratorium to govern, if you can.
Yep.
So, Holland Village, my favorite place in the world,
Airbnb.
3 or 4 years ago, had an Airbnb go in. These people bought this house. They were ready to go. It was all set up. They had it booked, right? Because there were no rules saying you weren't allowed to do it. It was on the same street as the councilman. Councilman finds out about it. They put a 180-day moratorium on it and hand deliver a cease and desist order to the owners the day before it's rented, saying, we have to investigate this more. You're not going to do this.
Right.
And that, to me, is to this day, is one of the worst things I've ever seen a local government do to people.
Yep. It's the same example. It's just on a different scale, and it's more palatable and understandable for people to understand that. So I invest in a house. I've got money into it. I'm an individual. It's a good bit of investment, and now the town comes in at the last minute and says no. You've mentioned the marijuana type of stuff that's happening out of the state, where they're just kind of killing industries, with a simple swipe of a pen.
Yep.
So this is what I'm talking about, and where I come in from a very hands-off, laissez-faire, minarchist government. It needs to get out of the way. What I need government to do for me, or Poland to do for me, is make sure that if somebody steps on my Airbnb property and throws a rock through the window, the cops show up and arrest them. That's what I need. I don't need you to tell me what I can do with my property. Now, if I have an Airbnb and all of a sudden it's throwing college parties every, 2 nights, I'm already outside of a nuisance law that you already have on the books, that you can send a policeman you already pay for to my property and stop it immediately.
Right.
Correct?
Yep.
Right. Okay. I can violate code. You can stop it immediately. This incessant need to continue to involve yourself in our lives and make rules that change how I can use the property I buy in a very legal way because you haven't taken the time to look at it is absolutely aggravating. It's frustrating as all get out. A good buddy of mine owns a business and he makes an extremely good living with Airbnbs. Nicest places you'd ever go to, right? Keeps them clean, communities deal with it, and they all move on. And guess what's never happened? College parties every weekend that are burning down the town and hookers showing up, and now we're doing a gambling site out of the back end of an Airbnb. It's people that show up and they stay a night or two and then they leave. Boardman allows it. You can do this in Boardman all day long. I don't remember reading a news story about an Airbnb in Boardman that burnt the neighborhood to the ground, any more than your sons and I throw a party 2 years from now and we piss off the neighbors, right? It's a problem that didn't need solving, that a politician who thinks he has to act or she has to act in order to prove their worth as a politician and exercise the power of my office, it's just a big old rooster set of feathers popping up on their back to prove a point. And it's absolutely detrimental to people and their property and trying to better themselves.
Caller, do you have anything more to add?
Yep, good job. You guys are doing a great job. I'm listening over here while working. Good job.
All right.
Okay, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, bub.
See you guys.
Did you follow the Sobe thermal saga?
Help me out.
Okay. Company Youngstown Thermal used to own a boiler system that fed all of the steam pipes downtown.
Yeah, thank you.
Not a profitable thing. They tried to treat it like a utility a bunch of times, tried to subsidize it so that they could keep doing it because the buildings depended on it. But nobody wanted to touch it in the free market because there was no money to be made. Sobe enters, buys Youngstown Thermal, and agrees to do the boiler system for them in trade for being able to take tire and rubber and pressurize it and use it as a burning fuel for the rest of a thermal. Council, they got approval from the APA that any of the exhaust or anything was all contained. It didn't have a threat as far as the environmental concerns go. City Council and the public didn't like this being down here by the river, right?
Okay.
They felt the constituents, it was a dangerous thing. So City Council decided, well, I'm going to put a 1-year moratorium on it. And Sobe says, hey, that's the profitable end of the business. We'll continue doing this, but we really need this component in order to keep doing this.
Right.
So it goes before council. They don't make any more headway into the approval process. Council publicly state that they just don't want this thing here. And so they set a 2nd year of moratorium. So then obviously what happened is they burned through all of their cash. They got to a point where one of their boilers were repossessed by the leasing company. Now the boilers go down and we can't get any kind of hot water or steam down to the buildings downtown.
Yep.
So YSU and the city decide, hey, we're on the south end of this system. Let's fire up our stuff, because they got off of the system for a while.
Yeah.
And they plumbed out of that. They're saying, okay, well, we've got a system. Let's try to send our steam backflow down through the city. Well, there were too many pipe breakages, too much pressure loss to come down, so that was not on the table. So now you're in this impasse. City Council starved a company, so they couldn't come through forever, infinite amount of time to be able to supply the heat. And now there's no heat from October all the way through January of this year. All the buildings can't figure out a way to heat themselves up beyond 50 degrees.
Yeah.
And now the city has to somehow... I honestly don't know who released the new boiler system to replace the one that was done. I don't know if this was city money. I don't know if somebody privately just put up the money. But now they have a temporary fix. But now you have a utility as an extension of the the city administration owns the boiler system downtown rather than just letting a company do what it says it was going to do. New York Times covered the story a month ago, and they did not blame the council people, the moratoriums for the lack of heat. They blamed it on aged infrastructure and that the city needs to invest in more infrastructure. So that whole cluster, like it gave me all of the ammunition to say, see what happens when city government doesn't know what they're doing and endlessly creates a moratorium. You get all of this.
Or you give city government too many runs to go down, and you can't be a sniper with a shotgun.
100%.
Okay? So, look, we already have EPA rules. We already have oversight of the Mahoning River. These things already exist. There's already federal people that will come down and make sure that you're not doing what you shouldn't be doing in an environment where now you're burning tire rubber and stuff like that. So we're worried about the river. We're worried about the,
which is reasonable.
Which is reasonable, but we already have laws and people to address
Yes.
that. You don't need a moratorium, okay? Because you already have the people to make sure that this is going the right way and can shut it down if it doesn't. That is a way different scenario than we're not going to shut it down before it gets going. And now we are preventing you from
Right.
doing your work, right? One is I broke it and I need to stop it and fix it. And one is we're not going to let you even attempt to run this because it may break.
The negotiation. So let's just say a data center starts using too much capacity electricity, more than they did.
Sure.
Well, you pause the plan. It was built into the plan that they did that. Here's the mitigation rules that say what
Sure.
happens if that scenario hits.
Sure.
I'm getting fired up about this.
I know.
What the hell?
Dude, just go build a little substation out there by that neighborhood. Add it on your investment. You'll never even see the pennies in a rounding error.
Right.
So, and then you map that with, now you have too much authority in the governance body over the city of Youngstown. So maybe not this current council, maybe not the last council, but aggregately over their time, they are able to make decisions and they're not holding themselves responsible for the very things that need to be kept up to date so that we can make other decisions. So now you have the moratorium problem, which is probably based on your explanation, sounds to me like a way overstep. We already have things to deal with this. We don't need another politician making another rule or another law. We've already done this mess. We've got the architecture to control it. Now we have a lack of investment in the infrastructure, which is Youngstown. And now we have a solution that we can't do because the infrastructure's screwed up, and we have that problem in the first place because you shut down a solution for it before. And now government is making the decision on what private entities can and can't do.
Do you think there's a limit to that? Like if a strip club wanted to set up in your neighborhood, use the council using their moratorium power to keep that type of business out of your neighborhood?
I think if the citizens voted that they didn't want that type of business, then the city council enforces the citizens' answers. Right? If I would argue against a council coming up and going, I don't want strip joints, in my network, in my town. I think they should stand up and make that appeal and win the hearts and minds of the people that can vote on that. Just like commercial code, residential property, manufacturing property, right? The city or the town can tell, their constituents can tell their politicians what they want. And then, so people vote it down, all right? 51% of the people want to see, strippers in a bar, 49% don't. Now you have a society that has to either figure out how to continue to live together and work together and kind of minimize the disruption of that place using existing code and existing expectations. You may never know there's somebody dancing in there topless if you drive by that place. Just because you know it's there doesn't ruin your life.
So really
right?
the level would be that if there weren't any rules that stop a business from coming there, that you leave it up to the people who live there to vote on either the zoning that prohibits it or the rule regulation that prohibits it,
100%.
or just vote on the thing itself.
So all right, if you want to kind of get into like kind of the philosophy that drives that, there's a philosophy in libertarianism which everything that government does, they do at the point of a gun. All right, and so basically what that means is if you take every decision that a government makes and you take a citizen and they do not follow that decision, at the end of that chain is somebody that's armed with a gun coming to your house. All right?
This is metaphors, guys. Metaphors.
This is metaphors, yes. It's a squirt gun. So by that definition, you morph into everything that government does is violence. All right? Now, violence in terms of it is an aggression against my natural sovereignty as an individual and my property. All right? So anytime government makes a law, You can be as silly as putting a speed limit up, which is just a civil infraction, all the way up to murder. Government has imposed a restriction on your natural ability to just move about and breathe and be a human being. All right. That's the core of libertarianism. And that is basically what founded the United States. Now, a government exists. That's monarchism, a small enough government to protect me from you, but not to protect protect you from me, but not the other way around. If a government says you can't have this type of business and they impose it without talking to their citizenry, they've just eliminated a business, eliminated a way of life because they don't like something like, a stripper dancing, in a bar. The citizens should decide that. And you're going to have areas of the country like the Bunny Ranch out in Las Vegas that say, hey, these things can exist and we all put up with it and it's actually become part of our identity, right? Mm-hmm. Or you can say, hey, this just doesn't belong here and we don't want it. And you need to go somewhere else. And now that business can't go, but it's gone at the voice of the collective community right. That's made a vote, not by 5 or 6 people that have some predetermined view, right? Put a bunch of ultra-conservative religious people, on a board. You won't have strippers. You won't have alcohol after 6 o'clock. We used to not be able to buy alcohol on Sundays. Mm-hmm. Businesses can operate on Sundays because it's, and you start to impose this legitimate, unquestioned use of power that has no recourse mm-hmm. by a group of people who have been given this power without the authority of the people. And I think that's immediately dangerous. And so bend towards progress and start to remove some of those things and let the people vote. Now, then you got to move. You don't like it, I got to move. But nothing's risk-free, people. I mean, you have a certain way of life. You are going to invest in the required resources, time, and money to live the way of life you want to live. And if they put a strip joint next to me in our neighborhood, I'm moving. It's going to be a pain in the butt. I don't want to sell my house. You probably just knocked my property value down by a bunch, but I'm moving, right? Because I'm going to invest in the way of life that I want. But I can't be hired to, the trustees over boardmen and just, you know what? Joe, I ride Triumph motorcycles. I've ridden them my entire life. They're awesome. They're quieter. They're not very loud. There are no Harley Davidsons allowed in Boardman.
With that power, you could totally do that.
With great power comes great responsibility, right?
And just wash out complete companies or industries that compete with you
For sure. So okay, I own the strip joint. All of the money I make from it, I donate to charity. It goes to the church down the street that helps people that can't get health care insurance. Do you have a different feel of me now? You know what? I run the strip joint, and I take all the money out, and I bought a house in Florida. Okay, do you have a different view of me now? Different circumstances, same catalyst. So as soon as we give a body of authority that has no recourse or no redress from us, outside of some election that happens every 3 or 4 years, we have given away the ability for us to just kind of practice our normal lives as human beings and just, kind of natural citizens. And I think you eliminate as much of that as you can.
Yeah, because they can arbitrarily use that and selectively target or not target, too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to hold my tongue on the next one because I'm really going to get you in trouble if I get on that way.
All right, let's read some of these that came in. Enjoying the show today. Very informative. That Paul guy is pretty smart. Of course, so are you, Joe. See, that flattery is what is very...
It helps.
Very welcomed here.
Yeah, so Anita, send me your address for the check. Appreciate it.
Bob says the hubris of local governments, elected officials, that in this area they almost never consult with subject matter experts, no matter what topic subjects. So saw it with COVID, saw it with the East Palestine, and now seeing it with data centers. He's absolutely correct.
Well, I think, I don't know if that's 100% true. It's more anecdotal. But, I happen to be really good friends with a fire chief who does hazard response that showed up to East Palestine, very close to our family. They're getting the feedback. Whether or not they digest it and make good decisions about it is way different. Never thought I'd hear a libertarian advocate for direct democracy.
And I was going to mention that when we were talking. On small scale direct democracy, yes, you get a little bit bigger where the problems entangle, like it wouldn't work in New York City to have direct democracy. You would just have tyranny of the majority.
Right. So So Hell Corridor's got two here. The council's elected. They had the consent of the citizens they serve. So that is a representative government statement that says, because I elected you, you have the right to make decisions that you think I'm going to make, and you have the authority to do it, and I don't have redress other than voting you out next time. I think that's a way bad argument.
Yeah.
I think there are so many bad answers to that. Tyranny of the majority is a myth, dude. I think you have an error there. So libertarianism and the Federalist Papers outline, so the Federalist Papers, for people who don't know, are the volumes of information written by our founding fathers and the people that offered advice into the founding fathers, that a lot of it was incorporated and distilled down into what we now call the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, things like that. And they explain more thoroughly than a short U.S. Constitution can their mind process behind how we came up with these principles. So, for example, the original draft was life, liberty, property. The final draft is life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. The Constitution does not recognize your natural right to property in its plain text. If you go back into the Federalist Papers, you can see that it most very clearly considers part of your pursuit of happiness your ability to self-own and manage your own property and not have it subject to retrieval by the state. The core principle of the Federalist Papers and the core principles of why libertarianism exists and why Democrats and Republicans, as the two parties driving this country, are driving it into decimation and they're laughing all the way to the edge of the cliff, is protection of the smallest minority. They specifically consider tyranny of the majority a myth, right? You can ask anybody that lived in the Civil War era if there was a majority of an opinion on how they treat other people and how that went, all right? And that's a real easy, silly example, tossaway example, but that happens across the board. What is the smallest minority? It's the individual. It's me against 330 million other people. So should 330 million other people be able to say, if Paul steps off of his property onto my property, so I step onto my neighbor's property, that he has the right to walk out and pummel me to the point of death? Right? No. The entire structure is to protect me from you on aggressing into me, the smallest minority, in my rights. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. My self-body, my self-ownership. Non-aggression. Right? My rights end at the tip of your nose. That type of thing. So as we kind of go through this, again, we have to be reasonable. Every plot on your political spectrum, if you just use the left to right line that everybody wants to throw out, there are an uncountable number of spots on that line, right? So if we kind of go back to the engineering and math side of life, there is an infinite number of places on that line. One place on that line is libertarianism. Within libertarianism, there are an infinite number of opinions and ideas of what that means. So in fact, most often, if you try to come into the party, what you will hear probably within 2 or 3 days is, you're not a real libertarian. Well, why not? Because I believe something a little bit different than you. A little bit different than you. Contracts, unions, healthcare, right to life, right to choose, whatever, right? I'm just a little bit off. You're not a real libertarian.
Not real.
Right? So I want to have arms. I don't think you ought to have a nuclear rocket in your front yard. Well, dude, you are not a real libertarian, right? So there are infinite points across this line. And what I'm trying to get at is 100% without a doubt, no question, I want you to be able to do whatever you want and marry your gay boyfriend while shooting M16s in the air and smoking pot through the process and dancing naked in your front yard. Love it. It's not realistic. Society doesn't work that way. And you don't want society to work that way. There is a minarchist view or a risk-aware view of the things that we generally don't want to have happen that are negative rights, like preventing you from acting is not a negative right. That's a positive aggression against you that prevents you from doing something. But recognizing you shouldn't drive down the street when you are drunker than a snot is not government, over-exercising its rights. It is saying this is a legitimate risk imposition you are putting on the rest of the community, and so we need to kind of scale this back, right? They don't say you can't drive. They don't say no cars are allowed anymore. They don't say we can't build roads because drunk people can't drive drunk if they aren't on a car and aren't on a road that we built. They just compromise, right? And so I'm not advocating that everything has to be the consent of the majority or everything has to be voted for, but you have to recognize for us to live together as a people and be able to shake hands, when we walk out to the mailbox, or have conversations like this, I can't take away your right to live and exist in a way that doesn't impact me. Could bother me. I don't like your voice. I don't like smoked meat. Why are you cooking your smoker all the time? It's in the wind, You can't go that far. And a realistic person begins to understand that there are steps that you make that generate more freedom and remove unnecessary authority from a government who has the unequivocal right of violence at the point of a gun, and get yourself into a more free society. Like, that's all this is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And two points on that. So I think what that commenter was talking about was when you elect an official, you give them power of attorney to make all decisions and never have to check with you again. You basically outsource your decision making. I want to think as representatives of more like a proxy, where they're the mouthpiece, but they have to check in with you regularly, and you are giving the commands through them. That's why
Sure.
you won't be ruled by them once you give them. They're beholden to you, to be able to come back and get new guidance and
All right.
whatnot.
So how easy is it to get? Was it Saccone? Who you guys were talking about?
Yeah.
Get him out of office. Is it
How
him
hard
or
is
her?
it? Michael Saccone?
Okay. How hard is it to get him out of office?
Very hard, very difficult.
So you've given him authority. He's got authority that you can't take away anyway easily.
Mm-hmm.
He can go way out. And I don't know anything about that case, so I'm not going to speak to the details of it. But I know the problem, and I've heard you guys speak about it, and I've heard how hard it is to get him off, right? So literally we are giving people the authority to kind of do some of these things for an extended period of time. And when they start to go off the rails, it should be easier to impeach a politician than it is to elect them.
Agreed.
100%.
Yep.
Right? Now, that's not the way we work. We are a representative republic. We are not a democracy by definition until you get down into lower local governments, and we are more of a democracy, but we still have a period of time where we put you into office and we give you authority to do things based on that majority vote that got you in. That is a representative type of arrangement. My argument is I don't like that. Now, I don't want democracy because that's worse. The 330 million, you could say we're voting to go beat Paul up, and it's legal.
Yeah.
Right? Now I'm in the hospital. That's not right either. So I don't want to go to democracy, but it would be great to see us bend towards a political class that makes less decisions. Just do what we hired you to do, right? And don't interrupt things because there's no law, right? There's no law because nobody said we needed one. People have been renting places for years. Airbnb's not new. It's just a new logo that you know about, right? And let's put that to a vote if the groundswell actually starts to show that there's an issue, right? So for me, this is very akin or an allegory to running a business, right? I'm not going to make swift decisions until I understand what the groundswell of support or angst is against my ability to make the next dollar.
Right.
And if I just start going... So I own Pelican 3, CPA firm. Everybody knows what that is. We specialize in AI. Do a lot of AI. Love AI. What if I said we're going to do a moratorium on AI at Pelican 3? I lose 180 days of opportunity and revenue because the groundswell of the environment is saying, what is this? How do I use it? I've seen my buddy using it. I see all these posts on Facebook. How can I automate myself? I could put a moratorium on that, or I can say, I'm listening to the environment, and I'm going to respond to that. As a politician, the disease that you get the moment you get sworn in over that Bible that says, I don't have to listen anymore, and my role and success of it is going to be determined by how many actions I take over the period of my tenure, I think needs to be a view that we revisit. Maybe that's the most politically correct way I can say it.
Yeah, and the direct democracy is a favorite topic because it always ends in this stalemate because, all we can do is put it through a certain prism. Okay,
Sure.
So let's just say you and I, we have the rules are that your house is your house and you're nobody's allowed to come in, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, this is kind of boring because I don't have anybody to talk to or do anything with.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make one compromise on number rule.
Sure.
But I'm going to invite somebody to come in, but it's a temporary deal. There's a contract between two people. I know that I'm stepping out of the liberty of you're not allowed to be here thing. So long that you do what you say you're going to do and I do what I say already, then we're able to compromise that one liberty that I had yesterday but it's in a temporary form until it stops not working out anymore.
For sure.
Right?
I
So
can agree with
democracy we know that if we give a majority rule, that it is not the sacred thing. It is our compromise into accomplishing something through an unpopular method. And so long we constrain the method, then it doesn't have its, all of the terrible things that can happen because of it. And it easily goes away if it ends up not working out.
So, and this is where you and I depart.
Okay.
Right.
Ready.
Because give anybody power, and they are going to exploit or increase that power. Right. So I can enter into that contract, but I also have the authority to say that contract isn't valid, or I'm going to extend it. And who has the right to tell me no? And now I've continued to use that authority in a way that is expanding my authority over, XYZ. Anytime you give government the authority to do X, okay? So let's use 2A. Great topic that everybody gets yelling at each other about. So 2A is the right to carry a weapon, okay? Own a gun, bear arms. There are red flag laws that we hear about in that, all right? So on the surface, are red flag laws a good idea? Should we identify people who we think are a threat to themselves and others and temporarily remove their right to acquire and access and carry a weapon until such time as the courts, the authority that we're going to put this to, say whether or not you're adjudicated and yes or no, this is what happens going forward? Most generalized people, if they kind of sit back and they think about this from an emotional standpoint, would say, boy, does that make a lot of sense. Okay? Now, there's an opposite argument to that. And again, I'm just going to provide both sides, and people can yell at me if they want. There's an opposite argument to that says, how did you determine whether or not I was a threat to me or somebody else? Right? Now, did I call them? I'm like, 10 minutes, buddy. I'm coming to kick your ass. That's different. But I'm upset. You and I had an argument over a parking lot because, I bumped into your car, or I parked too close to it, and your wife couldn't get in the door. There's lots of things that make people angry. Am I a threat? Don't know. The red flag laws provide that definition to the very entity who uses that definition to take away your rights, right? And that's where you start to have to be very, very careful about what authority you give to an entity who legally has the ability to take away your rights with no redress, right? That's also the reason why our country doesn't change as much as more as it used to, because neither you nor I, if we're honest with each other, are willing to go to prison right now to fight the ability to not pay proper taxes anymore. We're going to pay it. We're going to yell
You're
about it.
You're assuming that I don't have that kind of gusto.
I did make that assumption. I do apologize. Right, and so there comes a point where the investment in order to get what you want becomes fairly severe, and there are a number of people who will suffer that severe penalty before the groundswell comes up in order for us to do anything. So right now, a lot of this is rhetoric, and we're trying to make small bits of piece of progress based on arguments, but a lot of us are not willing to go. So a lot of us are not Edward Snowden. I guess I'll say that. Okay. But anytime you give the government power, that power can be used for good, or that power can be used for evil. Right? And their ability to increase that power becomes a decision that is made by the very people that you gave the ability to make that power in anyways. Right? So Congress. Can Congress increase the authority of its own institution? Sure, they could draft a law and they could all pass it, and if the government or the president signs it, done. Law. Right? It's going to take a bunch of people to go sue it, to go to the Supreme Court to get it overturned, but if they don't do that, it's law. They just assume more power over you. It's just the way it is, right?
All right, well, let's use red flag as your example.
Sure.
And this will get us into AI, I'm certain of it.
I'm good.
So let's just say, okay, in theory, it mitigates a risk if done purely.
Sure.
So there's three parts of it.
Okay.
Number one, the rules that say whether or not it's a pass-fail. Having a transparent set of rules, that how it was judged, how someone came to the conclusion,
sure,
and whatnot. Number two, the information was blinded with who the information applies to. So it's not Bob Smith's information. It is just the data.
It's just
about
anonymous
them.
data.
So it goes through some kind of formulation.
Okay.
And then trusting the arbiter of that information. So a trust authority, blind information, and what was the other one I said? Oh, clearly defined, transparent formulations.
Okay.
Now, if you wanted to judge me on red flag, and I can look to see if I already know that I pass fail because I know what metrics you're using, I know that I'm going to be judged not because you listen to me on the radio and hate my opinions, right? And is that a way to like engineer around the natural instinct to mistrust the people?
So the short answer is that's what we do every day. That's why 0.08 is DUI and not 0.10 and not 0.60. We've gone through a scenario which says this is a limit that we can scientifically test, and at this limit or above, you are statutorily drunk. Okay? Mm-hmm. And then you can't argue it against it and go, well, I'm a good drinker. I've been drinking for 50 years. You know, I'm not drunk at 0.8. I can drink whiskey all night. 0.08. Okay? Can you be arrested for DUI at 0.06? 100% you can.
You can?
Oh, for sure. Because
Okay.
that's just one test.
Okay.
You stumbled getting out of the car. Did I?
Impaired. Okay.
Impaired. Your
Got it.
eyes are wiggling. Are they? Right? So ironically, at the bar, we have a customer who is a police officer. And so we had her put all of us through a DUI test at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when nobody had even had a sip of beer yet, just to kind of enjoy the experience. 3 out of 4 failed.
Seriously.
Sober.
Holy shit.
Sitting in a bar. So there's no drug test there. That's just observation. Does that mean that the officer's lying? No. Does that mean you have poor balance and you're wiggling? Maybe. Does that mean you have a twitch in your eye? I don't know. What'd you eat for dinner eat for breakfast that day? I don't know. But the reality of it is now you start to give these types of things, it opens up Alice's, you got to chase a rabbit down all these holes. What's the parameter? All right. So now something that you can scientifically manage becomes way easier than something else. So we all agree to 0.08. We just do. It's just a fact of life. It is what it is, you know. But red flag, what's a person that's too depressed that's a risk to themselves? A person that like, man, they are stressed. We're running 3 businesses. We go home. The wife's mad at me right now. My kid just got a poor, report card. I called the teacher. They told me I was being a over-aggressive parent and I need to, and I'm like, I could just kill myself. Right? Can't own a gun? I don't know. My wife calls and goes, my husband just threatened, can't own a gun? Is that the threshold? There's no, in this scenario, the threshold of that objective criteria that now says you don't have the right, Joe Danyi, to defend yourself and your family anymore. For 30 days, somebody comes up to you and they want to attack you, you just got to go, hey, please hit my bad side because I can't defend myself. What's the objective authority? And then I give it to you, Joe, who in your example, I'd say you are the independent arbiter of this. All you see is anonymized data that comes my way or comes your way, and you read it. What's your background? What were your experiences as a kid? What school did you go to? Are you classically trained liberally? Are you classically trained conservatively? Do you own a gun? Do you not own a gun? How many guns do you own, Joe? Right? And so now it's like, I got a guy who hates guns. My dad was this way. We weren't even allowed to have rubber band guns growing up. Nothing, right? He'd be very apt to say, nope, right? But if you gave me that list, I think I'd probably be very apt to say, let's talk about this for a minute and figure it out. But I still have my biases. So now I've tried to anonymize this stuff. I've tried to make it subjective, but I have the bias of the questions and I have the bias of the interviewers that is taking over somebody's rights. So an anarchist, which is the furthest point on the libertarian line, is nope.
You did point to yourself, by the way. I have to point that out.
I did?
Yeah.
So I'm not that. It's a fallacy. Would say yes. It would say yeah, do this. But a more aware of progress and aware of humans living together and aware of society, we recognize that there are risk points, and our job is to minimize the amount of power we're going to give the government at that point in time, right? Because if we don't want to minimize it, then we literally will have a government that says, Joe, you can have one gun that can hold 2 bullets. One of them has to be a rubber bullet. The other one has to be a blank. And it's got to be in a lock safe 3 houses down from your house. Right? Oh, good. That helps me. Right? And it's not a slippery slope. It's reality. Governments historically, every single one, have expanded their authority in order to get their citizenry to move in a certain direction. We have very evil examples of that. And we have less evil examples of that. But in every situation, the principle is an enforcement of rights at the end of a gun or the threat of violence by an entity that is not required to do it any other way. You don't have any redress against. So.
All right. With that caller, we're going to see who wants to talk to us now. Caller, you're on. Hello, caller.
Bald-headed people.
Art thou there? Jerry, I have to read that aloud here. Bald-headed people are very intelligent and direct-thinking individuals.
Well, the ones with beards are.
Yeah. Caller, you're on the line. You there?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to, I guess, since we're talking about guns and red flag laws, I was listening to your argument about it and how you're saying the government will always try to encroach on our rights.
Correct.
And you were saying earlier that you have a more libertarian mindset that, we should be protecting the rights of minority, which I'm all for protecting rights. But at what point do your rights at what point are your rights to things more valuable than my life?
So that's an excellent question. And it is a philosophical question that gets asked every time somebody begins to explore, these types of scenarios. And I appreciate it. So the kind of the quip or the T-shirt logo is, my right to hit you ends at the end of your nose. So I can't hit you, right? There's non-aggression. I cannot hit you. That's a poor example. And it's poor because you're letting me swing at you. I just happen to miss your face, right? So I have exhibited aggression towards you. A more 2A related event is I have a firearm and it's New Year's Eve and there's 100 people in my yard and I shoot it straight up into the air. Should that be allowed, right? Well, that bullet comes down.
Yeah.
That bullet comes down. Okay. Another example is I have a bunch of people in my yard, and we've seen example of this in the news, and I'm scared of them, and so I open up my door and I'm holding a rifle. You don't know whether it's loaded or not, but I got a rifle, okay? And I wave it in front of you. Should that be allowed, right? Well, I'm on my property. All right, get me off my property. Now I'm in the cul-de-sac. I'm in the public space, and I wave this in front of you. I think the realistic, if you talk to an honest person who wants to minimize government, will say, there is a point where your activities put me at risk, whether you intended it or not. And it's a very real risk that can't be argued. I am waving a loaded gun at you, right? I'm shooting a bullet into the air and It's got to come down. That's where your right to life, liberty, need to be defended by something, right? And for us, that something happens to be our state, federal, and local governments underneath the guise of whatever the Constitution protects. So to the caller, there are kind of ways where a libertarian can be reasonable and actually kind of hopefully thoughtful in what it is that they are allowing, knowing that when they do it, they've extended rights to the government to reduce my personal rights. But I'm doing it within these bounds of the risk I'm providing to the next person. Begs the question, what's risk and how risky can you be? But I don't know if I answered your question, caller, but there is a point where we become dangerous to other people and we can exhibit that. And a libertarian doesn't say, well, you didn't pull the trigger, you shouldn't be in trouble. There's an agreement.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a limit. We just don't know what the limit is.
Yeah, and that is the push and pull with people in government, right? It's always the push and pull and limits on what we allow them, to do. Can you cut up tires and heat the town with it? Can you invest in cryptocurrency? Do you get treated differently than me if I invest in stock? Government is always this push and pull in deciding what it is. My bend is towards less. My bend is to let people go until they disrupt your ability to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, until my coercion puts you at risk, right? So another example of that might be, I own my property, and I would say I can do anything on my property I want. You can't stop me. It's my property. What if I bury oil in my backyard? Can you stop me now? I have a creek in my backyard that runs to your backyard. Can you stop me now? I want to burn all of my trees, and they happen to be on the edge of your property, and ashes fall over and hit your house. Can you stop me now? we have to be reasonable people and intelligent with this. And the problem that I think we have to address is the people we elect are the people that we are expecting to represent us and make those decisions in our best interest as the smallest minority, and often they are not. Shut down marijuana laws, shut down the plant, tax me on this, turn down data centers and moratorium. And I think they owe us a way bigger explanation when they want to do those things, and we ought to have the ability to go, it's time for you to leave.
Yeah, and
Quickly.
The reasonable approach. We'll use an apartment thing. Two neighbors, an apartment, one's listening to music, right?
Yep.
The one end, the tyranny end, doesn't want you to listen to the radio at all, and the anarchist wants you to be able to jam as loud as you want and
Sure.
disturb everybody around you.
Yep.
But the negotiation between those two people who have to co-occupy spaces
Yep.
can find something reasonable that lets you listen to your radio and hit all the important parts of listening to it without being a disturbance to the person's next door. And that agreement might be volume number 4. Don't go over that, and both of us are happy. But it's not neither end is going to win.
Sure. So at the bar, we have bands, right? I think you've been in there when
Yeah.
you've had a band playing. You can't tell me to turn down the music in that bar, okay? If I put that band outside, now you can, right? Because there's a decibel level, a measurable number of which we have all agreed above this is problematic, right? I also have to stop outside music, I think at 10:30, something like that. So I can't be playing Metallica live band out at midnight. You know, I have broken a law. The libertarian inside of me says, get over it, move. I'm just having a good time. I'm not hurting you. But the reality of it is I am impacting you because now I am playing something loud enough that it's impacting your ability to have your own ability to sleep, get up to work, you know, stuff like that. But you can't go, I happen to go to bed at 7 o'clock in the afternoon. We've all agreed that 10 o'clock is kind of generally what everybody's happy with. And anecdotes aside, we're going to agree on this stuff. That is a painful concession from somebody that hates government.
Mm-hmm.
Painful.
Yeah.
Okay? But it's also how society operates. And if you would take all that stuff away and give me the paradise I want, we're all going to fight anyways. And then there's going to be somebody bigger than me that comes in and takes my rules away and imposes theirs because I can't beat them up. And then I'm pissed off at you. I got to go to somebody and say, hey, can you fix this for me? And now we, by default, just created a state. Created somebody to go help me enforce these rules. So the payoff of, or the cost, the investment of what we put into society is the price we pay to not have a violent anarchist society with people beating each other up just because how big their fists are, right? Kelly Pavlik, I know him from, you know Kelly? If Kelly hit me in the head, he'd kill me, right? His hands are bigger than my head, right? So how do we stop him? Well, he has to operate in a civil society and be subject to problems. We accept the risk that he will get mad at me and punch me in the head and kill me, but then there are going to be prices to pay. And those prices are so severe that it prevents him from doing that, right? You and I aren't going to get in a fist fight right now, right?
I mean, you're making another assumption.
I know, I make these all the time. So anyways,
All right,
I
caller,
think
thanks
caller,
for calling. Appreciate it, bud.
It's just a bend towards bias.
All right, we're going to be wrapping up here in a couple minutes. Let's read some quick-hitting comments and let Paul respond in our waning minutes here. Let me see. Let me go back. Is it possible that maybe these data centers are just bad news for the area?
Yes.
Okay. But
Yes, but
caveat is that pick something that's not data centers. And let's pick something like Social Security. And if the opinion that Social Security is a bad idea, that's not the end of any kind of conversation. That's a now dig into what makes you think it's bad. Have conversations with people who know about it. Make concessions and agreements to make it not as bad as it could be. But I think that once somebody arbitrarily picks a line in the sand and say this is bad news and are not open to the argument on the other side, that's where we hit that impasse because you stop listening at that point.
yeah, for sure. So you've brought up, I think, Social Security or other type of subsidy welfare type programs in the past. Do we want a society where our oldest are homeless and have no money? No, right? Do I think that people are responsible for themselves and they could have blown all their money and instead of saving it and they're partly responsible for their 100%? I do. But I don't want everybody to be homeless when they become 70. I don't want to be homeless when I'm 70, right? So we enact these social nets, all right? Are people going to take advantage of free money? 100%. So we start to manage what it is that we want to do and how much we want to do it. So a very tangible example of this is, in order for you to qualify to some programs, you have to be 2 times the poverty level, right? If your income falls at 2 times the poverty level, you then qualify for this types of subsistence, food card, medical benefits, whatever. Well, what's 2 times poverty? It's a math number. Next politician gets up to the table and goes, give us more money, give us more taxes, and we can solve poverty. Poverty is a math calculation. There will always be people who are 20% above the lowest on that math scale. Poverty, by definition, will never disappear. It's math, right? The top 1%, there's always a top 1%. I don't know what numbers you're using, but there's always a top 1%. So you try to fix things in this fashion, and you're promising a red herring that can't be fixed. Because I can give everybody here $1,000, and in 2 weeks, there is going to be a bottom 20% of the amount of money in people's pockets. Are they poor? By definition, they are.
Mathematically, yeah.
And I subsidized it. So I'm not eliminating it. I'm just creating the barrier of which math tells me who I'm going to continue to do this. And we have a society have said this is the level, right? Is that level high or low? Depends on who you ask. My bend would be people should be held more accountable for themselves in the decisions that they make that impact them, the smallest minority. That's a very tough stance.
All right. I love the no real libertarian talking point. It's why I left the Libertarian Party.
We don't miss you. Oh, I'm teasing you, man. I appreciate your comments. I'm just teasing you.
I ran for governor at their convention in 2018 and
dude,
had
I know who he is
a
then.
no real libertarian mindset.
No, that's awesome. I'm glad you did that. I'll have to look back and see who ran that way. We probably know each other, bud.
Matthew says, should 303 million people have authority over me? Yeah, if they all agree, you're wrong. Libertarians fail because they fail to acknowledge that their worldview means that our rights would impede onto each other. In their view, everyone's right is more important than everyone else.
So this statement here is valid. It's a valid point of view. That's a progressive position. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying progressive on the lineage of politics is right, wrong, or otherwise, but this is progressive because this warrants and provides support for a majority opinion and ignores the smallest individual. Yep. So we could easily come up with, you and I, Joe, probably 100 examples of things that we think are right, and I don't want 303 people telling me I'm wrong.
All right, we're wrapping up.
Awesome,
Paul,
guys.
Thank you so much for coming down. We're going to make this a regular thing. I love these conversations,
and
I think you have a lot to add here. So, all right, everyone, catch you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow